Hello everybody, how are you? Happy July 1st, 2019. For us in Los Angeles, that means more or less, that the June gloom is over. That's June, believe it or not, is actually gloomy. It has cloud cover here in LA all month. But now that July's hit, it's a beautiful day. I actually don't see one cloud in the sky. Now you have your pollution haze. So guys, I've been doing a series of videos about Texas in conjunction with my book, Joe Ditzel Has Some Problems in Texas. And the last series of videos have been titled 10 Things You Can Only Do in Austin, 10 Things You Can Only Do in Dallas, etc. This video is going to be 10 things you can only do in Abilene. Now, my usual disclaimer, these are not real things. These are just stuff I make up off the top of my head because it's funny. Well, it's funny to me, and hopefully if you like BS made up on the spot, this is the video for you. So here we go. 10 things you can only do in Abilene, Texas. Number 1. Do you have children? Does your child make artwork? Like maybe they trace their hand and they show it to you on a piece of red construction paper and it says, "Oh, that's a turkey. I made a turkey, Mom." And you put it on the fridge with some magnets and you go, "Thank you. That's a beautiful turkey." You've made a beautiful red turkey. Well, in Abilene, guys, they take advantage of this tendency of kids to draw things that are misshapen, like cars with tires that are 6 feet tall, or houses with 14 angles to the roof, okay? And what they've done is they're working with local manufacturers to recreate cars and houses and turkeys, fake turkeys, that look like what your kid drew. I know, it's an amazing thing. But it was the brainchild of a local longtime artist, John Art Guy, that's what they call him, Art Guy Wilstafson. And he said, you know what would be funny is if this crazy house that my kid made was an actual house. So now they have a neighborhood in Abilene that's called Kids Place, and it has all the crazy drawings realized in 3D form in the neighborhood. I mean, this is one of the things that should be at the top of your list if you're going down there to Abilene. Guys, unbelievable. That's number 1. Number 2, Abilene, of course, is known for friendly people. Hey, how y'all doing? And beet pie. Beet pie is known across the Texas. When it comes out of Abilene, they go, "Oh, I got to have some of that Abilene beet pie." Now, beet pie is not easy to pull off because it's all in the extras, but the extras are what allow each beet pie chef to give it a special spin. Everybody has their own beet pie spin, their own little formula, their own little recipe, and you go to Abilene, you're going to see 100, 200 different types of beet pie. Now, there is a classic recipe. Some people call it straight beet. Some people call it beet unfiltered. Okay, there's different ways of referring to it. But either way, you're going to enjoy some delicious beet pie if you go down there to Abilene. And you are not going to get that in Waco. You're not going to get that in Fort Worth. That's something you can only do in Abilene, Texas. Number 3. Everybody, when they're a kid, at least my age, when you're younger, people my age, when they were younger, guys, you wouldn't believe it, you just wanted to get your driver's license. I know, it's hard to believe, because the kids today, they don't care that much about cars. They don't care about driving, really. And for somebody my age, it just seems like such a foreign thing because we longed for that license. My life will be complete if I can get that driver's license, right? But today's kids, they don't really care that much about it. They're like, I'll take an Uber, you know. You're like, oh, you know, you're missing the angst. The buying a jalopy and fixing it up so that it at least ran. Because all you wanted to do is get your sweetie in that thing and park somewhere. Right, think about that. We longed for years for that car and worked our butts off to get it. And once we got it, all we wanted to do was park it with our sweetie. Interesting concept there. But in Abilene, guys, this is not anything to worry about because there's a city program to give every 16-year-old their own car once they get their license. So if you procrastinate and you don't get your license till you're 17, well, you don't get your car, your free car till you're 17. Now, you're saying, wait a minute, this is socialism. This would never take place in Texas. And the thing is, it's a program donated by a unknown millionaire. In other words, they don't disclose the name of the donor that donated the funds. But everybody at the age of 16, after they get their license, you have to be 16 and have your license, not a learner's permit, you get a free car. Now, here's the kicker. You're probably thinking, well, I'm just going to get a big new truck. Here's the kicker. It's just enough car to run. So these are not brand new cars. These are a little better than hoopties, right? Because they want it to be safe. They want the kids to be safe. They don't want it breaking down, that kind of thing. But they're old cars, guys. So take it with a grain of salt. I mean, let's say you're a rich kid and you probably getting a nice car anyway. Well, you're just probably not going to take advantage of this program. All right. But if you were like me and somebody said, hey, you can have this car. It's not much, but it's yours. I'd be like, yeah! Christmas in July. Well, that's a feature of living in Abilene. If you live in Abilene and have kids, well, that's another financial burden removed from your back. And we don't know who to thank because they are an unknown donor. But that's number 3 on our list. Number 3 on our list of things you can only do in Abilene, Texas. Guys, you ever wonder where they came up with the name Abilene? Well, Abilene is actually one of the oldest towns. I almost said city. It's really a town. It's a city. Oldest towns in Texas. And in the very beginning, I'm talking about when there was like 15 people in the area, right? Early days. Because we tend to think of Texas as being the way it is now. But you gotta remember, way back when, it was a sparsely populated state, guys. So there was a woman that was traveling with a guy named Todd. They called him the Mug. Todd the Mug Grotto. And he was a gambler, but he was also one of these traveling medicine man guys. So what he'd do is he would sell his medicine, which is basically 81% alcohol. He had the gift of gab, and then he'd take that money and he'd gamble it. And his wife, her maiden name was Lean. Okay, her first name was Abigail. Abilene. And if it wasn't for Abilene, this guy would have died because he was a lousy gambler, and what he would try to do is cheat. And what do you do when you cheat at cards in the frontier days of Texas? Yeah, you get called out with lead, hot lead. And she could see that if they had any hope of a successful relationship, she wanted to settle down, have some kids out there on the frontier, build a ranch, a little house on the prairie kind of situation. She knew that she had to get him straightened out and get him some help. So she got some books, and she got him out of the gambling, got him out of this selling this hooch that he was selling as medicine. And they were the original founders of the town of Abilene. And it has grown so much since then. But guys, you can go to their original homestead that, frankly, she built. I mean, she was the one that came up with the design and did most of the work, because this guy was in recovery. He was getting out of his demons. He was getting the demons out of him with the help of the local preacher there. He'd put his hands on his forehead and he'd say, "Demons out! Demons out of the mug! Get your demons out of the mug!" Because that was the dude's nickname, the mug. That's when he was selling those that moonshine as medicine. He kind of would do his face into like you know, people say they got a mug, they're mugging. Well, that is a house that is still there, and it's one of the things you can only do in Abilene, Texas. Number 5. Number 5 is fun because it has to do with sports. If you're a sports guy like I am, you're out there exercising, running around, getting in that fresh air, playing that golf, playing that football, throwing the ball around, throwing lawn darts at each other until somebody gets stabbed in the heart. And the local sports that are so popular, of course, are high school football. They've got a roller derby team. And one of the most popular sports is called Abilene angling. And it's a fishing method that has a little bit of a twist to it, because regular angling, of course, you can use a lure, you can use bait on a hook with a bobber, you can go out in the ocean and go trawling for deep sea fish. But Abilene angling is throwing your old socks into the water on a regular old Velcro tab connected to a piece of string that is then hooked up to your hat. And what you do is you go out on the boat, say, and you take your hat and you throw it out boomerang style over the water. You see what I'm saying? And this contraption on top of your hat will unfurl the line and shoot it into the water attached to the Velcro strip, and you will be pulling in fish by the bucketful. I mean, you're going to have to go down to Home Depot and get 10 more 5-gallon buckets. And to put all the fish in, guys, it's Abilene angling. And it just developed over the years up there in Abilene. And, you know, I can't overemphasize how many fish you'll be hauling. I mean, if you're a guy and your wife is going to cook the fish, eventually she's going to say, "Honey, I love you. But if you bring one more walleye into this house from your Abilene angling, I'm going to walk down to the courthouse and put in the proceedings for a divorce." Okay? So you got to be careful with this. But guys, if you're a fisherman, you're going to love Abilene angling. That's something you can only do in Abilene, Texas. Number 6. And guys, for number 6, we're going to go to the world of business, the world of manufacturing. Because what was one of the original industries in Abilene? That's right. They made the nameplates for the early Model Ts. The early Model Ts, they didn't think to put a brand name on them. They didn't have that kind of sophistication. But somebody in Abilene said, "Why don't you, Ford, Henry, why don't you put your name on it?" And he's like, "Well, why would I? I mean, I'm just selling it. Would I get I don't want to put my name on it." And they're like, "Dude, there's going to be plenty of other vehicles. This is going to be a sensation. People are going to steal this idea and run with it. You should put your name on your product so people know that you stand behind it." And he's like, "Well, you got a point there." And that's why some of the original nameplates for automobiles were made right there in Abilene. And you can see it, the whole history of this, at the Abilene Automobile Nameplate Museum. Number 7. Number 7 is a really fun one, because what can you do for fun with a whole family down there in Abilene? Well, guys, if you've ever gone down a water park slide, okay, where you go through the chute and you come firing out the thing, this is a really interesting combination that they put together down there in Abilene, because it's a water park. It's a combination of water park and creek beer drift. You see what I'm saying? So you go shooting out of the water slide at high speed into an inner tube that you then are floating down a creek with beers. You know, you remember in high school or any time, you'd go drifting, you go tubing, you sit in the tube and you drift down the creek, and they have one tube where they've put a bunch of beer and ice. And so you drink your beer and you put it in the trash can, of course, that you got right there next to the cooler of beer. You got to be safe, got to be sanitary, you want to respect the environment. But then you grab another cold one. Well, down there at the Abilene Water Park and Tubing Beer Drift, you go shooting out of the power slide right into a tube, and the next thing you know, you're tubing down the creek with a cold beer in your hand. Guys, it's an incredible combo. Whoever thought of it? And it's something you can only do in Abilene, Texas. Number 8. Sure. We understand. Yeah, Abilene's got a good quality of life. It's, beautiful scenery. You can buy a home without chopping off your arm to pay for it. Streets are safe. The schools are good. What's not to love? Well, guys, hard to believe, but in the early days, now remember, we're talking about the Old West. Things weren't all so nice and neat back in those days, right? I mean, there was some crime going down. There were some gangsters. There was some horse thieves. All kinds of commotions going on. All kinds of shenanigans. Well, one of the early bad boys, what you gonna do, was Earl Clementine Bodoskanov. Earl Clementine Bodoskanov was a Russian that came over. Now, why did he come over from Russia? That's right. He was on the lam. He was running from the Russian police. The Russian police. Okay? And what he did was he lit it out for the western frontier. At that time, there was the frontier and that was Texas. And he was then very quickly back up to his old shenanigans, stealing horses, robbing banks, cheating at cards, breaking women's hearts, and just being an all-around rascal. And guys, one of the famous shootouts of all time was when he got into it with Sheriff Dylan Whalen, who was the sheriff at the time. And sheriffs, you're not supposed to do this as a lawman, but the sheriff said, meet me outside and we're going to draw. And they drew on each other in the middle of the streets of Abilene at high noon, guys. It was a classic. And unfortunately, they both took lead, and then they permanently went to bed. It was a sad day, but it will live in infamy. And you can go and on the main street of Abilene, where they stood, you can see a star in the middle of the street where they both stood, where they took the lead and went to bed for permanent sleep. It's still there today, guys. And that's something you can only do in Abilene, Texas. Number 9. You know, after all of these things to do, all of these events, all of these unique features of Abilene, I'm kind of getting a little bit of a hunger up. Tango hombre. So what? Well, listen, if you get hungry in Abilene, there's one place you got to go. It's Sissy's Abilene Chop House. Now, Sissy is, her nickname is Red. Sissy Red has her own chop house there. She inherited it from her father, who started it in 1947, right? And this chop house has grown and grown and grown by doing one thing, and that is serving up the best steaks and chops in the state of Texas. People will drive for miles and miles around just to see Sissy and to get some of those chops, some New York strip, some porterhouse. And the one thing you may want to consider matching up with your steak is Sissy's special Funyun onion rings. She's taken the classic Funyun and added her own twist, guys, that makes it a taste sensation that will make your chop, make your steak even better. You thought it was mouth-watering before. Well, you get that Funyun on there, and you are going to have yourself a meal to remember. You're going to take an Instagram of it, and you're going to send it out on your feed, because you won't believe how good that food is. And that's number 9 on our list. And now number 10. Number 10 about things you can only do in Abilene, Texas. We've all gone to the swimming hole. We've all gone to the swimming pool. It's that time of year, guys. It's hot, hot, hot. And in Texas, it gets extra hot. But that is how we separate the girls from the women and the boys from the men in the great state of Texas. Can you take a little heat in life? But for the time being, on a summer day, sometimes you just want to cool off in the cement pond, or jump in a swimming hole, or get into the community pool. Well, in Abilene, you got another choice, and that's the Olympic Poolorama. It's a connected series of 17 different swimming pools, guys. They've got big ones, they've got little ones, they've got round ones, they've got square ones. They've got a swimming pool that's in the shape of the letters of the word Abilene. That's right, a swimming pool that spells out the name of the town. Well, the community decided to make sure everybody stays cool and doesn't get hot under the collar, and that's why they built, over the years, 17 different community pools, all connected by a series of waterways, guys. And everybody stays cool in town because they can jump in at any time. And that is something that you're only going to see. That is something you're only going to do. That's something that you can only experience in Abilene, Texas.